Okay, so got another class in. We're fired up about our group, um, our coaches and support staff, administration, everybody that's involved in OSU athletics, and players and um, people that donate airplanes for us to fly around the country have all played a role in this. The community here in Stillwater has been awesome. We continue to bring families in from across the country, and they always say how friendly and what a warm place Stillwater is. All those things are huge for us. And most of the players that are on this list, we've been working for over a year, some of them for 2 years. So it's good to get them in the organization, in our culture. Excited about getting a few of them in at semester, and then the rest of them will be coming in June. We still have a few spots that we could fill maybe over the next few months. Just depends on what's out there, depends on positions, a lot of different things. Really hard to say what that would be at this time, but we do have some spots. There's a couple of guys that we've been on for a long time that have chosen to make a decision in February. So when that happens, we'll continue to recruit them. But overall, I think this is a really good class, like I do every year. I'm excited about what they bring to the table. They've been with us a long time, and so can't wait to get them here and get them started.
Mike, you had two guys that were late in committing. The athlete from San Antonio, and I want to ask about him, but the linebacker from Utah, Mason Cobb, he was here this weekend on a visit. Watched some tape on him. How big a get was he at the end here?
Well, first off, with Mason, he's 225 pounds. He's a tough guy. Comes from a great family. Grew up with a bunch of brothers in the same house, and we're hoping that that his nature and demeanor, he's a little bit of a throwback. His toughness, his willingness to strike people, and I think he's very committed to himself and to the organization that he'll be involved in. So we're really excited about him being a part. And with Rashad, he's a football player, he's a basketball player, and he's a triple jump. And that's been a good combination for us in the past. Not as heavily recruited, but we've liked him for a while. And the more you watch him as he finishes up, you like his demeanor, the way he handles himself. He's been a quality person, and he does a lot of things that we like athletically. So we're excited about both those guys jumping on board.
Yeah, 49 feet, 10 3/4 inches triple jump. Mm-hmm. I get tired walking that distance.
Yeah, triple jump guys are usually very athletic. He's shown to have really good eye-hand coordination. I think he'll be a good fit for us.
And he was a guy that played some running back too in high school. Are you set with him as a receiver?
Yes.
Yeah. You mentioned guys that are enrolling early. I'm aware of a couple, but do you know off the top of your head who?
Illingworth, Irby, Monroe Mills, and I might get 2 or 3 of these wrong because, trust me, everything's run together for me in the last couple weeks. Eli Russ, Quentin Stewart, I think. I'm fairly accurate there. I might have missed one or whatever, but that'll be pretty close.
How important is that to get them here early, to enroll early, to get them in Stillwater?
I've always said it depends on the young man. Some young men are ready to do that, and some aren't. Doesn't mean one way or the other. Is there an advantage? Sure there is. They get here, they start training with Coach Glass, they learn the system, they adapt to the college life. We all know how that is. Strategically, it's an advantage if the young man's ready for it. Some young men are ready to get out of high school. They're ready to go out there in the world. The others are not so ready. So we've always said, if they ask us, we've always said, if you're ready and this is what you want to do, sure. If you're not, don't push yourself. But it is an advantage for them. There's no question about that. Just because time June rolls around, they know the system. And they've been training for 5 months with Coach Glass.
We talked to Gleason in the spring. He said this is like the first time he's been able to recruit with scholarships. Just kind of how do you think he did in his first?
We did a good job picking up Shane. You know, he stayed on him. He was with us a long time. And that's really what his limitations were. You know, he's scanning now for the next years. You know, Sean is a smart guy. It could have been more difficult to recruit without him than with him. You know, he signed the young man out of California that had several offers that went to Princeton, had some pretty good Power 5 offers, I think a year or two ago, I can't remember. So probably more of an advantage for him to go this way. It's a little bit more difficult when you're I would think, when you're recruiting without him, unless you just are in a family that says, I want an Ivy League education and I don't care what else is out there. So he's doing fine.
Whenever you bring a guy up like that, like you did with Mike Harrisage, how do you kind of judge their recruiting ability? You mentioned being able to bring a guy like Princeton like that.
Truthfully, 2 years later, depending on how the players develop. And that is a difficult process. I couldn't tell you how many times we've sat in recruiting meetings and looked at players that are playing for us now that have been really successful. In those meetings on the same young men 2 years ago, we were deciding whether we thought they were good enough. And they end up being a starter early in their career. And then you bring in guys that may have a lot of stars, I guess is how we rate them. And then they come in and they're nowhere near being ready, and they end up not being good enough based on their demeanor, how they adjust to college, how important it is to them. It's hard. So a couple years later, you get an idea of kind of how they do. But, you know, with Sean, with Mike, the reason they're here is because they're tireless workers. They're dedicated. They get it. They understand. So if they have that part, then the rest of it, they just got to go out and try to do the best job they can of evaluating a young man, not only athletically, but whether he can maintain and do a good job while he's here in school.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. During the summer, Trent Pullen had said that Charlie Dickey was one of the big reasons why he chose to come here. What is it like having him involved with the recruiting process too?
The one side of recruiting that's changed considerably the last 4, 5, 6 years is I'm gonna say 75% of the young men go to schools based on their position coach now. Years ago, we used to recruit geographically. Now, with technology, it's easier to recruit position-wise. So the position coaches do a good job of building relationships with the players. And in most cases, they'll make a decision based on the position coach because that's who they spend the most time with during their career. Now, we have an advantage with Rob Glass in strength and conditioning because they all know that they get him 11 months out of the year. That's huge for us. There are no limitations to a certain extent on what he can do. And then it's the position coach who's next. And so Coach Dickey has a tremendous reputation. He's very down to earth. What you see is what you get. He's honest, and he's had a history of taking really good care of the players he's coached both on and off the field during his career, and that pays dividends for you in recruiting.
Obviously, there's still 7 scholarships available, but right now you have more Oklahoma signees than Texas signees. Do you recall that ever being the case during your time here?
I think this is the first time. We had discussions in recruiting meetings the last few years, and I've said that in here on media days, that we feel like the level of football in Oklahoma has gotten better and better and better. And you go back and do a study. We went back and did a study on the players that we've brought in from the state of Oklahoma compared to other states. You really have to look at Texas one way, Oklahoma one way, and then the rest of them. And per capita, if if you build the formula that way, we've had a higher rate of success with Oklahoma kids than we have any other state, just based on total numbers. Now, the larger number is going to come from Texas because we keep about 70 guys on our team from the state of Texas. So we've looked really, really hard at players from the state of Oklahoma. I think sometimes we can look at a young man that may be 20 miles down the road and think that he might not be good enough to play here. We need to go somewhere else and get somebody. When if you go back and do your research and study, we found that the guys that have been close to home have done very well here for a variety of reasons, which either way it doesn't matter. You just need them to be successful here in the classroom and on the football field. So we've extended ourselves a little bit more in the state of Oklahoma for those reasons.
Because of having Gunner as a son, you've had a chance to see a lot of Oklahoma high school football, and it's probably bittersweet. Two of the guys that you signed today, the two kids from Bixby, especially maybe Brendan Presley, because I can only imagine what it was like sitting there watching the state championship games both years, knowing that you were going to get the Presley kid and seeing him make some plays that, you know, cost Stillwater a championship. Great games, but wow.
Well, when you look at the in-state players, I had the luxury of seeing them in the summer based on travel 7-on-7s and all the different things that Gunner was involved in. Middleton and Presley and Reagan and Roberson and Thompson. Now, Eli wasn't involved in that because obviously there are no linemen catching passes in 7-on-7. But I had a chance to watch these kids do a lot of things in the summer. So I know them better than other people because I watched them. And the bittersweet part of Presley and Reagan, when the game was over, I walked over and hugged them and said, I'm glad y'all are on our team now. But they're quality people, really good football players. They come out of a great organization over there in Bixby, just like Stillwater now. Stillwater's become a powerhouse in football. But I'm glad they're on our team, and there's a good group of Oklahoma kids that are in our program that we're very excited about.
Presley is listed as a receiver here. Is that what you expect of him?
Yes.
And then Zach Middleton, he's listed as an athlete. Just kind of what are your thoughts on him?
Zach's going to, Zach's played running back. In the summers, he was doing a little bit of slot receiver stuff. He'd line up in a wing, run routes. We just put him as an athlete. He can run the ball. He can catch the ball. He's in a return game. He can do a lot of things. He was a successful player on defense, too, as a safety. And see, he's listed at 190. He's 212 now. So he's done a lot of things. Best thing we do is just put him down as an athlete.
You mentioned Eli Russ, and one thing you look at across the board, I saw him, I guess, a little over a week ago in a state championship game. But you look at Mills, you look at the Bennett kid from Arizona, and even Trent Pullen may not be as tall, but he's a big kid. You got size with those four kids.
There's a lot of size. Trent will, I think he's 65 or 68 now. I don't know what he is on this sheet here. Yeah. Anyway, he's about 68 now is what he was. So, yeah, they got him at 75. I think he was 68 a week ago. He's going to be 290 and probably end up playing inside, which is big enough, based on his strengths, which is his ability to move his feet. So, a lot of these guys depend on how they develop. We've had guys come in at 265 and go 310. So, it just depends on how they develop. But overall, this is like our fourth year in a row of solid offensive line class. And, we went years where we were struggling. And so once we get out there in August, we're going to have a number of offensive line guys, and Coach Glass is starting to churn them through the program, and you'll start to see the benefits of that probably within this year or the next year, where you get young guys that are developed, and when our threes get a lot of practice, like in the bowl right now, our threes get more reps than our ones, which are the guys that aren't playing much in the games. And when they can line up and function on both sides of the ball, we have accumulated a large number of defensive linemen and offensive linemen that we were in short there for a while. And when those threes can start to function really well, you're gonna see the strength in your team, and that's why I'm excited about the direction we're going.
Watching some of Cade Bennett's film, he's a nasty kind of offensive lineman. We hear that's kind of what Charlie likes. Just what have you thought of him?
You know, it's interesting. Comes from the family of just as gentle and nice as they can be, and very soft-spoken, and he's soft-spoken. But he's exactly what you're looking for, because when they flip the film on or you turn it and get rolling in the game, I mean, he's into it. He's nasty, and that's the type of lineman you have to have. They're hard to find nowadays. It's not as easy to find those guys as you would think.
Second straight quarterback out of the state of California for you guys. 5 from the going out west. What would you credit kind of that westward expansion for you guys?
Quarterback-wise, you go all over the country. You go everywhere and try to find whatever's out there. That's the one position where you can draw guys in from just about anywhere. There's not as many quarterback scholarships because most of your schools take one. Some of them don't take one every year. So you can go out and find them wherever. Their numbers, population's big out there. They play it year-round. The weather's good. They're in 7-on-7s year-round. So there's just a lot more people to choose from out there than there are in this part of the country.
What do you like about Shane specifically?
Well, he's a big-armed, raw athlete that his best years are ahead of him. So he's got size. He's got strength. I was out there to see him a few weeks ago, and he's actually he's thinned up a little bit. He's lost about 12 pounds. He's coming in, next week or 2 weeks from now, whenever we start the next semester, and he's all football. That's what he does. I mean, he's been doing that for years and years, and so I think that when you bring guys in that are all football and they're serious about it at that position, it's a good sign.
Highly touted guy. Do you expect him to be able to compete at all? Do you expect him to be able to play a role next year?
I don't have any idea. It's almost impossible for me to give you that information. I wish I could.
He is coming off of injury, though. How do you kind of manage that when he gets in here to make sure that he...
Who's that?
Illingsworth. Wasn't he coming off dinged up a little bit?
Yeah, he just had a sprained ankle. He's fine, yeah.
One guy that was in your class I think the longest commitment is Eli Russ. He's a grown man.
Yeah, it's difficult now, the games that are played in recruiting. So when we get young men that are committed to us, that buy into our culture, that we buy into them, and we have a trust and an agreement, it's very appreciative. You still have young men that play games, for lack of a better term, which is part of it. And then you have quality people like Eli Russ, who've been committed to us for a long time, and everybody takes their shots at him, and he stays with us. And in most cases, the young men that do that, they have success in college because they're squared away. They get it. The ones that play games and back in and back out and all that, most of the time they're caught up too much in themselves and worried about themselves than they are the team. Eli's the opposite of that.
One of the guys, this may be the second longest commitment. He's still playing. He'll play Saturday night in Jerry's World for a state championship. That's Grant Mahon. And interesting deal there. He missed his whole junior year after, I guess, he committed to you with a back injury that maybe was career threatening. Now he's come back and he's having a heck of a year.
Yeah, it wasn't as serious as what people thought. He just kind of rested and got back in order, and then he had as soon as that happened, he had kind of a freak deal. He got rolled up and got an ankle, and he was out about a month. And but since then, he's back and playing. He's 268 pounds. I was down there, saw him a couple weeks ago, and he's done very well. He's in a great organization with Coach Walsh. And so we're excited about them and excited about getting him in here. Yeah, he's listed at 265. That's what he is right now. He'll go 285 in a year.
Matt Polk's dad, I think, was here before your time, but did you have a pre-existing relationship with him at all, and kind of what are your thoughts on him?
He was here way before my time. I reminded him of that. So, what's interesting is he's once we found out about the tie and started to communicate with him, he loves OSU, like most people that have been here. And we've done a really good job of bringing alumni back over the last 10 or 12 years. So that's starting to grow. But he was here 5-6 years before I was, but certainly played a role in getting his son.
How much of a priority does that take when you have either legacy or a younger brother, like with the Harpers or the Walter Scheids, to go after those essentially legacy and kind of continue those pipelines here?
Unfortunately, if the older one is squared away and does things right and invested in the organization and fits in our culture, then we'll go after the other one. If the older one's not, we usually won't go after the other one.
You have Irby on there as the one JUCO transfer in the group. What did you notice about what he was doing at Northwestern Mississippi?
He's a little bit more ready-made. He's older. He's at about 240 now, and I think he'll be 260 by August. So he's got good foot speed. I'm hoping that as he develops his strength and ability, that he'll be a pass rush threat for us off the edge.
I'm going to turn the page here. You had several bowl practices. You got a few more, and then you'll break and get back with the kids in Houston. But how are you feeling about your bowl prep? And maybe comment to Chuba made it official yesterday about playing in the bowl game, and that's a good sign.
Well, Chuba's been out there from day one with us. I don't know that. I mean, I guess it's just normal now when you have a player rated that high that nobody's sure if he's going to play in a bowl. Unfortunately, that's probably somewhat justified, but Chuba has been with us every day, and obviously said I'm playing in the bowl. What he'll do in his NFL future, I don't think anybody knows, including him. I was glad that he met with the media yesterday and answered those questions, gave people his response, and hopefully people will quit asking him that question because he's not going to make a decision for at least a month. So he did the right thing by saying I'm playing in the bowl. I'm unsure what I'm going to do as far as the NFL, and I think that's going to hold up for 4 or 6 weeks at least. So he got that out of the way. Now he can enjoy being on the team and getting ready for the bowl. And practices have gone good. We got Spencer out there. He's back to full speed. Drew Brown's out there. He's full speed. So starting to get some guys out there going and getting back to a normal routine. A couple days here, and then we'll give them a break. Then we'll meet up at the bowl.
On the flip side, Texas A&M had their stud defensive lineman say that he skipped the bowl. Is that a little bit of a relief for you guys? Like you don't have to focus in on that type of talent?
I thought that was a good decision on his part. Thought he made a really good decision, and he's going to be a good NFL player.
You mentioned Chuba's upcoming decision, wherever it comes, you have scholarships left. How much will that play into the fact that are you going to need a running back if he decides to go?
Well, that's the game you play, right? You have the early signing day today, which is a really good thing. Then you have to weigh the checks and balances of the portal, which is an issue. Players going out early to the NFL, which is an issue. And then medical scholarships, which is an issue. So there is no answer because we don't know. There will still be players at most of the Division I schools after January and or after spring ball that could jump on the portal. So those numbers are difficult to balance. That's why I've continued to say that the NCAA has created a void right now. And until they allow us to replace portal athletes, there's going to be an issue. But we're doing the best we can now based on the tools that have been given to us.
Portal being around a couple years now, is there anything you've learned or kind of stopgaps that you found to be able to recruit in this portal era?
It's here forever, and again, everybody's now has accepted it. A young man wants to go in the portal. We're all good with it. I'm good with it. I just need the NCAA to do their job and to balance it out, to make it to where everybody can even their numbers out, so we don't go into practices with 75 players instead of 85 and get guys hurt because they're getting too many reps. There's a lot of things going on in the portal, but for the most part, if a young man wants to transfer, he's going to transfer. Okay, you have head coaches getting fired. So if a head coach gets fired, a young man transferred, it's justified. The other position is quarterback. 3 of the 4 teams playing in the playoffs are playing with quarterbacks they didn't recruit. It's a big deal, right? So how big of an impact is that making in college football? pretty big impact. So it's here to stay. They just need to balance the numbers and give us an opportunity, everybody, not just Oklahoma State, a chance to balance our numbers. And then I think it's good, but it's not going away. It's going to be here.
So for you guys in particular going into January, does that leave you sort of shooting at a moving target as you try to fill out this class?
Yes, but it will always be that way. Not just us, though. It's everybody. Just based on you don't know who could go on the portal at a later date and then what you're looking for. So essentially, shooting at a moving target is about what it's like. You're trying to guesstimate, but you also don't want to overstep your boundaries and extend yourself and then not have the spots and have to make a call to them and say, I thought we had a spot, but we don't. That's not a good situation to be in either. Not that it can't happen, but we try to do things the right way here, and that's not the right way to do business. So you're just kind of reaching and grasping and doing the best you can based on the situation. They could solve the problem just giving you a portal out, a portal in. That solves the problem. It's real simple. But for some reason, they're not doing it right now.
You mentioned Spencer's back to 100%. Does he reclaim that starting role, or how are you kind of managing that for the bowl game?
We'll play both guys.
How do you kind of divvy up the work with them then?
I don't know that. That part we don't know. He just got back to practicing, got his cast off and is back out there. We need to watch him and just kind of see where we're at. But I would fully expect for both players to play in the game.
Are there any specific young players that you're excited about getting some extra time in the bowl game?
Practice reps, not really reps in the game.
These 18 guys on this list, are you done for today at this point?
We could have one or two more show up, but I don't know. I mean, we'll just have to wait and see. I think there's still a couple guys out there. Well, I know there are, but when they would, make that decision, I don't know.
With having a couple guys from Bixby, a couple from Connolly High School in Texas, what do you think of how the guys kind of work to recruit each other and, influence each other?
I think there's a lot of that involved. Then it goes back to the stability at home. So I've seen it happen both ways. I've seen schools where you had a young man that was committed to a school and he tried to recruit his buddy at that same school to go to the college he was going to. And if that young man didn't really want to and he had a really good home life, most of the time it didn't happen. If there's instability at home, not a lot of guidance, kind of freelancing, sometimes you can get a young man at a high school, grab another one and flip over and go somewhere else. If parents don't really have an involvement, then more peer pressure becomes a factor, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Do you feel that played a factor at all with the Scottsdale kids? They weren't in the same high school, but obviously in the same city.
What about them?
Polk and Bennett, do you feel the fact that that there was any influence between one or the other?
Well, Charlie Dickey graduated from out there. He's from that school out there, and so he had a lot of ties in that area. And then obviously you had the tie with Polk, so that's how it got started.
This may sound like a leading question, but you lost a Cowboy back tight end type player in the portal here recently. You picked one up in recruiting today with his signature. The one that went in the portal, you may not look at this stuff, but he was highly regarded, a lot of stars. This kid from Kansas, Quentin Stewart, not as many, but I think if you turn on the video, you kind of like what you see in Quentin Stewart.
Yeah, we're really excited about him. He's got a lot of the same characteristics as Bennett. Talking about him. I think he's a tough guy. I think that he is excited about his future. I think he's very mature. He comes from a very stable home life. He's really squared away. And I think he's going to put on 20 pounds. I think he's going to be a tough guy. You have to be a tough guy to play Cowboy back here. I mean, it's not for everybody. And he's a tough guy, and he's squared away in his life, and he knows what he wants to do. And so I'm excited about him getting here.
Brennan Presley remind you of anybody that you've had in the past? He seems to be able to do a lot of different things. His tape is incredible. Just like, does he remind you of anybody?
We need to get him in a 40 and time him so we can make a comparison to him and Tyreek. I'm not saying he's that fast, okay? Tyreek is a whole different level. But if you think about what they could do, Tyreek can return, Tyreek catches passes, Tyreek can run the ball. That's the same thing this guy does. In the state championship game, he had 19 rushes and 17 receptions and a kick return for a touchdown in the same game. Well, that was kind of like Tyreek, right? So Bixby did a great job of finding ways to get him the ball over and over, different ways, moved all the stuff. I don't know if y'all watched the game, but they did a great job of that. When Tyreek was here, Yurcich did a good job of getting him the ball, different ways. So there's similarities on doing a lot of things a lot of different ways. I'm not saying he's that fast. I'm just saying there's some similarities.
Haven't really been that explosive in special teams since Tyreek. Are you hoping that Presley is a guy that can kind of bring that back?
You got two guys on this in this class here. You got Presley and you got Middleton. Both guys that should be in the return game.
Yes. What do you remember about the last time you played Texas A&M, 2011, down at their place?
Was that the game we were behind? We were behind at half, I think 20-3 or something, and then came out and just went all turbo, no huddle, and just started going, and Whedon and Blackman got hot. And I don't know who the running back was. Somebody did good, running back. And I remember on the field it was like 140 degrees. I remember that. And I think it was grass back then, smoking hot. And then we couldn't decide what to do. At the end of the game, we were in that transition deal with the punt on 4th down. And everybody had an opinion. My gosh. I said, look, just put Blackman back there and snap it to him. He's the best player on the field, and let him run out of the end zone. And somebody said, well, what if he falls? And I said, he's not going to fall. Somebody said, well, he's never caught a snap from a center. And I said, I don't care. He can catch anything. And somebody said, well, we'll lose 40 yards in rushing. And I said, I don't care about that either. And so we snapped it to him, and he turned around and ran out of the end zone. I don't even remember how much time was left when we did that. Was it 4 seconds? Okay, so anyway, that's all I remember.
Cooper had a big game too. Josh Cooper had.
Yeah. We started running all that no huddle downfield throwing stuff, and they got tired, and so it was a big advantage for us.
Tell us that your boys questioned things after the game. What was the response to that decision, having Blackman go out of the backfield?
Oh, well, they were too young. 2011, Gage, the biggest issue, Gage now is 15, that's -8, so he would have been 7. Gunner doesn't say a lot, but the biggest issue I have at home is Gage. He's the one that questions everything I do, so he wasn't old enough to know what was going on at that time. So, and Gunner doesn't say much; he just kind of rolls with the punches. So,
Did that win sort of spark you guys a little bit? That
Yeah, it
season
did.
being in September.
you know, the win at Missouri in 8 was a big win, and that was a big win for us. They were good. I mean, they were top 10, I think, weren't they? I don't know. Yeah, and full house and all that, and that was a big win for our organization, no question about it.
It was on ABC, and it was also, the thing I remember was it was the week after the Tulsa game where Glenn's wife passed. And
Glenn wasn't there for practice a couple days that week, so that was a big win, sure, and they were a good team. So,
Do you remember if you had to go up against A&M when you were trying to recruit Harvey O'Field out of College Station?
I do not think they offered him. Do not think that. He wasn't real highly recruited. Everybody did a great job evaluating him. He was just a guy that was people didn't think much of him at all. He's a good example. I mean, how do you know? I mean, comes in and we bring 4-star guys in. We don't get many 5-stars. We bring 4-star guys in, and you know, they end up being a flop and not committed and whatever, and then you bring a guy like him in who was just very moderately recruited. You know more about it than I do. I just know that we didn't have to work very hard to get him and keep him on board, and he ends up being should be a 4-year starter. So, all right.
I know Kima Sivarin doesn't play a ton for you except for special teams, but what has he meant to your program coming in?
He's been
being
awesome.
Committed to you.
Just in the bowl, not the bowl, in the banquet the other day, when he stood up, I said, "Here's what he's done." He came in his first year, and he had to go through an adjustment. Our culture, the way we do things, but the last year he's been a leader. He's a leader in the locker room. He's a leader on game day. He competes. He's become a strong presence in our special teams. And he's been really good for us. You've got to have guys like him in your organization. And so he understands his role. He's a backup on defense, but he understands the importance of special teams. And between him and Bryant and Bryce, those guys understand their role, and they lead our special teams, and they're very important.